Okay, I wanted to go ahead and do a quiz review. We don't normally in class do a review before quizzes because the homework throughout the week was your review for the quiz. But since this isn't normal in our classroom, I thought I'd go ahead and do a review before your Friday quiz. So this is a quiz review for our April 3rd quiz. In case you're wondering what it is we're doing. So we're gonna go ahead and do, I'm just gonna pick a couple random problems that I would like to go ahead and do. And just to remind you and refresh you what we've learned throughout this week so that you are prepared for that quiz. So the first problem, let's say our directions say to find the GCF. And remember, GCF is greatest common factor, not just a common factor, but the greatest one between the terms you have. And if they give us a 30x minus 36, so they've given us a binomial, and we need to find what the greatest common factor is, put that out in front of the binomial. So let's see, what do these two have in common? If you want to, you can write out the factors of each, circle what they have in common, and do it that way. Let's go ahead and do that for this example. We've got 30x and we've got negative 36. Okay, so if I've got that 30x, and the negative 36, my factors of 30x are going to be what? 6 times 5, and 6 can break down into 2 times 3. So I've got 2 times 3 times 5 times x. So those are my factors of 30x. Now let's find our factors of negative 36. I know I can factor out a negative 1. And let's see, it's going to be 6 times 6 is one way to break it up, and each 6 breaks into 2 times 3. So I know I've got a 2 times 3 times 2 times 3. So I've got 2 2s and 2 3s. Breaks 36, and there aren't any variables to go with it. Now I'm going to circle what I have in common between the two. Got a 2 up here and a 2 down there. Got a 3 up here and a 3 down there. So for my greatest common factor, I've got a 2 times 3. And we're going to multiply that together to find our greatest common factor for these terms is 6. But it didn't just ask us to find the greatest common factor. It wants us in the directions to factor it out. So it means I'm going to write the 6 out in front of my parentheses. And then what do I have left inside? I've got that 5x. And in here, I've got a negative 1 and a 2 and a 3. So I've got a negative 6. So that would be if I were factoring out the GCF. Okay. So we just have to make sure you read the directions. If it's just asking for the GCF, my answer is going to be 6. If it asks me to factor this expression, then that would be my answer. So make sure you're paying attention to the directions. If it asks you to just find the GCF, it's that one. If it asks you to factor the expression, your answer would be there. Make sure you read those directions. Okay, let's do another one. And when you're taking that quiz, even though it's all going to be on Google Classroom, make sure you grab some paper, write the problems out so that you can get the best answer and you don't just guess. Practice these problems so you know what you're doing. So I've got 10x to the 7th minus 4x cubed. All right. So you can write it out, the prime factors, and circle what they have in common like we did in problem 1. Or as you're getting more comfortable with these and practicing these more, you can ask yourself, what can I divide each of these terms by? Okay, what's the greatest common factor? Or what can I divide them both by? What's the greatest common factor of 10 and 4? Or a 10 and a negative 4? Let's see, I can divide them both by 2. So I know I can probably factor out that 2. What's my greatest common factor between x to the 7th and x cubed, or x to the 3rd? Well, I know they're both going to have an x cubed. So I can factor out a 2x cubed there. And so if it just asks for the GCF, I know my GCF answer will be that it's 2x cubed. If it asks me to factor this expression, then I find my GCF, I pull it out in front of the parentheses, and then I find out what's left inside after we've divided those terms by the GCF. So I would have a 5 x to the 4th. Let's see if I did it right. 2 times 5 is 10. X to the 3rd times x to the 4th is x to the 7th. Yep. Now what I have left over here, I'm going to have a 2. 2 times negative 2 is a negative 4. Yep, that looks good. And we've got that x cubed up there. So if it asks for the GCF, I write that. If it asks me to factor the expression, then this would be my answer. Okay. So just make sure you're reading the directions. That's the GCF. That is the GCF factored out of the expression. If it says factor the expression. All right, let's do another one here. Negative 25 x squared y plus 10xy minus 45 xy squared. Okay, so we've got that. You can look at these and say, all right, what can I divide all 3 of these terms by? What can I divide all 3 of those terms by? I can divide them all by 5. And since my leading term, my leading coefficient is negative, and I've got another negative, since my leading coefficient is negative, I'm going to go ahead and factor out a negative 5. So I'm going to factor out a negative 5. Let's see, how many x's can I take out of each term? I could take 2 out of this one, but this one only has 1, that one only has 1. So I know they've only got 1 in the GCF. So here's a y, there's a y, that one's got 2y. They each have at least 1 y. So I know my GCF be negative 5xy. So if it asks for the GCF, that would be my answer there. If it asked me to factor the expression, I take the GCF, put it out in front. I'm going to go ahead and see what would be left. Meaning if I divide this term by my GCF, what do I get here? So let's see. Can I have a 5? X. Let's see if I did that right. Check, see if I did it right. I'm going to do negative 5 times 5. Yep, that gives me what I started with. xy times x. Yep, that gives me the x squared y. I always like to check these as I go and at the end. Negative 5 times what is going to give me a negative 10. I mean a positive 10. So I'm going to need a negative 2 here. Negative 5 times negative 2 gives me that positive 10. xy, okay, so negative 5xy times negative 2 gives me the negative 10xy. So we factored that one correctly. And let's see, we have a plus. Negative 5 times what gives me negative 45. Sorry about that. So we have 9. Xy times what gives me xy squared. 9y. Okay. So just double check. Make sure if I multiply those things back, they're giving me what I wanted. All right. So that is how you do those problems. And then I'm going to do a factor by grouping for you. So this is more from Unit 8, Assignment 1. And the factor by grouping is what we would have just done on Wednesday. Let's pick, let me pick a problem here. 15x cubed minus 20x squared, 27x minus 36. So remember factor by grouping. Sorry about that. Factor by grouping is where we've got 4 things. So I'm going to look and say, all right, is there something I know I can easily divide all these by? No. Let's break it down into 2 problems. I'm going to draw those parentheses in there and break it down so that I have 2 problems. And then I just say, okay, what do I factor out of this group? What can I factor out of that little group? And that makes it a little more bearable. I know both of these numbers are divisible by 5. I can factor out a 5. This has 3 x's in there, x times x times x. That's got x times x. So I know they've at least both got an x squared. So my greatest common factor just between these 2 terms is going to be 5x squared. But what would that leave me with? We've got the 3x. And then over here, let's see, I would have a 4. Let me double check. 5x squared times 3x is 15x cubed. Yep. 5x squared times negative 4 is negative 20x squared. Yep. Okay, now what can I factor out of these 2 terms here? This is where you realize it's a lot easier if you know your multiplication tables, you know your times tables. I know these are both divisible by 9, so I can factor a 9 out. 9 times what gives me 27x? Let's see, 9 times 3x gives me 27x. 9 times what gives me negative 36? 9 times a negative 4 gives me a negative 36. Okay, so that's where we were looking at these and said, yay, they both have those matching groups. So I can factor that 3x minus 4 out, and then what I have left, I go ahead and write inside my other set of parentheses. Okay, and so that is factor by grouping. So that's a quick little review, not so quick. That's a review of our information to get you ready for that quiz tomorrow. And good luck. Let us know if you have any questions. Thank you.